Hello everybody, and welcome back to a card review by a sassy black man. That's me.
B-I-G-G-I-E, a.k.a. B-I-G, get it? Biggie.
What's up, my Nimrods? It's Gage, and this weekend was actually a rather exciting weekend. We just had the sneak peek for Cybernetic Horizon, which gave us a whole bunch of new cards. We actually got a brand new TCG Exclusive archetype in the form of Dangers, an archetype that I'm actually really excited to get my hands on and try out. That archetype seems really dope. But outside of that fresh new TCG Exclusive archetype, this box, in a lot of people's eyes, doesn't have a lot of value to it, or it's not really a great box. But I do think there's a few hidden gems in this set that a lot of people are turning a blind eye towards. I'm just going to talk about one of them today that I think it really tickles my fancy a lot. Today I'm going to briefly be talking about one of the cards that had the dumbest localization name change I've seen in a while, and that is Ledger of Legerdemain, which was originally called Seer's Passbook. Not even close. Real quick, I'm going to take a moment to read over what Ledger does so you guys can be caught up to speed in case you just haven't heard a damn thing about this card, because understandably not a lot of people are actually talking about it. Ledger of Legerdemain is a normal spell card that reads banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down. During your third standby phase after this card's activation, add all 3 cards to your hand. You can only activate one Ledger of Legerdemain once per turn. Surface level of this card can really interpret it one of 2 ways. If you read this card for the fact that, okay, you get to add 3 cards from your deck to your hand, that's crazy. But also if you read it from the fact that, oh, you gotta wait 3 turns for that, then it kind of sucks. But there's one thing for certain, and that's that a lot of people really don't think this card is good, but I think that might be wrong. I like this card a lot, and I think it's super underrated, but it is underrated for good reason, and that's for the fact that this card is extremely slow. A lot of games in Yu-Gi-Oh! Do not last 3 turns. They will not last long enough for this card to be able to resolve, so at most you're going to be playing a card and just going straight -1, which that's just bad Yu-Gi-Oh! But for me, I don't think that's the correct way to be analyzing this card, and I do think we should be looking this card in a vacuum, sort of, and not actually just tied to the specific format we're in, which is a very quick-paced OTK kind of format, or just setting up a board that literally can't be dealt with. If we look at this card purely for what it is a +2 over 3 turns. I don't think there's a lot of cards that actually are like that in the game, just off of a generic card nonetheless. So this is a really unique card on its own, as it provides a lot of advantage. And if we don't look at the card at surface level and say, oh well, all decks can be able to use this card, really only a few select decks can use this card efficiently. The decks that are going to be able to use Ledger of Legerdemain efficiently are the decks that can actually play without having that 1 card for 3 turns. So most likely you'll be looking at decks like Stun that can use this card efficiently, or actually if the format happens to slow down to a point where Sky Strikers become tier 0, Ledger of Legerdemain I think could actually pop up. We'll talk about Sky Strikers in a little bit because it actually is very circumstantial if that card would get played. But let's talk about Ledger of Legerdemain in decks like Stun or True Draco Demise Stun deck, kind of. I think Ledger of Legerdemain would be a perfect fit for these decks, because these decks in particular focus on slowing the game down to its levels. They force you to play the game at the speed they want to. Utilizing huge blowout cards like Torrential Tribute, but also utilizing cards that just shut down the game to a point that you can only play them very limited, like Skill Drain or Anti-Spell Fragrance, is what these decks thrive on. So if they force you to play very slowly or force the game to a slow manner, Ledger of Legerdemain has a better chance of resolving. And getting those 2 free cards, 3 free cards actually once you trade it out, you can actually just win the game off that advantage alone. Because when the game gets slowed down to an attrition where advantage is absolutely everything, if your opponent can whittle down your resources to the point you're top decking, or the point that you don't have many cards to work with, and they get 3 cards just out of nowhere, or at the following 2 turns after playing Ledger of Legerdemain, you are easily just blown out of the game. Now obviously with a whole bunch of floating and searching effects in the game right now, obviously that's not the easiest thing to do to force your opponent into a top decking scenario, but these decks will thrive on the fact that they can slow down the game to a point that is allowable for Ledger of Legerdemain to actually have some wiggle room to be played. Again, True Draco Demise is a deck that I think easily could pick up Ledger of Legerdemain, and also stun decks in general, that if you want to fiddle with like Fossil Dyna or Thunder King or something like that, I don't know what you're feeling. Maybe that's what you're feeling. Come to think about it, the new Thunder Dragon archetype is just pretty much a stun deck on its own. Maybe they'll decide to fit Ledger of Legerdemain. Really, when you take a look at this card outside of the scope of the meta we are currently in, it actually does hold a lot of value in some kind of obscure decks, or decks that actually are just close to being good. True Draco Demise has been a deck that's on people's radars for the longest time. I can see this being an easy fit in there. Now let's talk about Sky Strikers real quick, because I also think that's a very important one. Sky Strikers, from what I know, are currently doing phenomenal in the OCG, and with new Sky Striker Hyate here in the TCG, plus an Earth one on the way, and a couple other new support cards, I see Sky Strikers starting to creep up in the meta more often. Also, with the impending ban list, hopefully going to lay the absolute smack on Goki, we might be able to see Sky Striker start to pop up in the meta a lot more, because Sky Striker is a deck, well, pure Sky Striker is a deck that focuses and thrives on very slow advantage-based formats. Pure Sky Strikers is still a very viable form of the deck to play, but that deck just notoriously does not have a way to close out games very quickly. So you can actually probably predict that mirror matches especially are going to last way more than 3 turns. You'll be getting a lot of advantage and stuff off of those engages alone and everything, but imagine the blowout you're going to get 3 turns later when Ledger of Legerdemain resolves and you just get a whole bunch of fucking cards to your hand. You'll probably be able to whittle down your opponent at that point. Now, of course, that one card in the early game, if we look at it in today's meta, is super valuable. You'd rather that be a hand trap or something against Goki rather than it just being a literal blank when the game's going to get closed out maybe 1 to 2 turns later when Goki just makes their U-Link, or they discard your entire hand with Gumblar, even though that's not popular, but you understand what I'm saying. Any one card is extremely valuable right now, but who's to say that won't change in the future? And while Sky Striker might not want to opt to play Ledger of Legerdemain now, because of course there are more valuable cards to be able to stop these fast-paced decks or bring down those decks to the level that Sky Striker plays, while it might not be the optimal choice now, if we get to the point like Tier 0 Zodiac format where you're literally just facing mirror matches all day, I see Ledger of Legerdemain being an easy inclusion. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think this card is super slept on. I think it has a whole bunch of potential to be just a really good card in not only stun decks in general, but also just an integral meta piece if we ever get to a slow, grindy Tier 0 format. But let me know what you guys think of Ledger of Legerdemain down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I still think it's a pretty great secret rare, even though it's worth absolutely jack shit. Could be good someday. Maybe that's just me. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. If you liked the video, be sure to like the video, thumbs up the video, how much especially you enjoyed the video, and if you did like the video, please do consider subscribing to my Yu-Gi-Oh! And other trading card game YouTube channel. And yeah, stay up to date when I upload that subpar content. Thank you guys so much for watching the video today. Be sure to like, comment, definitely subscribe. I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Nim signing out.